Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on this Thursday edition of Middays with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. 2 hours to play with. We will take you up to 6 o'clock straight up on this, the 5th of June, 2025. We're powered by our good friends over at TriX57. And of course, fresh roasted coffee, busy show. Jonathan Marshall in about 15 or so minutes on the NBA Finals. And I guess, is anyone going to watch the NBA Finals? The commissioner, Adam Silver, had some very interesting comments that he threw out today, which we will dive into. I'll get his thoughts on the head coaching vacancy surrounding my New York Knicks. Lloyd Vance around 5:05 on the NFL. And look, it's like you had a real competitive NHL Stanley Cup Finals game one last night. It was a good game. Goes in overtime. Edmonton was trailing. They come back in the third. They win it in overtime in the extra stanza, and now they're up 1-0 against the Florida Panthers. You get some good baseball. We got the NFL. We got the OTAs, right? You got the NBA Finals. And you figured on a day like today, maybe we would just kind of get through the sports world, and keep a kind of status quo. No, it just doesn't happen like that. Why? Because you know it and I know it. And there goes that man again. It's just come down maybe about 15 or so minutes. Aaron Rodgers, multiple sources reporting he will sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And there's a couple schools of thought here and a couple, my sentiment, if you will, on this by Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. When we were dissecting everything that was going on during the NFL draft, or prior to, leading up, I should say, to the NFL draft, the thought was that the Pittsburgh Steelers and their fan base, and we're still trying to figure out who the fan base might be for those that tune into the show religiously. Do they know what they're doing? Do they have their eyes set on Aaron Rodgers? Is this the quarterback they want? They had Justin Fields under contract for 1 year. They had Russell Wilson under contract for 1 year. They're gone. They're both respectively in New York. Go figure. So there you have it. We're going to bypass Sanders. We're going to bypass all these quarterbacks in the draft. And we're hoping, we're praying, we're wishing that Aaron Rodgers comes out of hiding, right? In his, what is it? What's that? The Huanaska, whatever the hell he does, right? Joking and smoking, having the shrooms and just trying to go and find himself. Now he's found himself. Whether he was in a cave or not, who the hell knows? Whether he was surfing, who the hell knows? So he's going to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I know this is a big story for the NFL, right? And obviously it comes down with the NBA Finals game one this evening, OKC in Indiana, which I think is going to be a snooze fest of a finals. But, you think about this move, and from a gambling standpoint, from a betting standpoint, the Pittsburgh Steelers odds to win the Super Bowl were plus 4,500. They haven't changed. And I just don't know. I think at times, here's a guy that I would totally have steered clear of. I really would have. And again, you guys know me. I call it the way I see it. And you saw this happening his final years with Green Bay. And you also saw this happening with the 2 years with the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers has basically shown you he is not all in. He's not. He is not all in. And Aaron Rodgers, because he's not all in, this is going to come back and it's going to haunt the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to come back and it's going to bite the Pittsburgh Steelers in the ass. You know it, and I know it. And I think this is a bad move. I think this move reeks of desperation by the Steelers franchise. I think this move reeks of desperation by Mike Tomlin. What are you going to get out of Aaron Rodgers? Seriously, what are you going to get out of him? He might not even make it an entire season. He's getting older. He's been battered, bruised. His body's breaking down. And more importantly, he's just not all in. So, don't give me the flippant response. You're talking risk to rewards, invest. I don't care about that because I already know what's going to happen. You and I both know exactly what's going to happen at the end of the day. At the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers is all about who? Aaron Rodgers. That's all he cares about. He's not looking to mentor anyone. He's not looking to take anyone under his wing. He's not about being me. He's not that guy. He's not a team player. He cares about one person, and that's Aaron friggin' Rodgers. And now you're going to stick him in a franchise. You're going to stick him on a team that's desperately trying to get that quarterback of the future, a head coach who wants to extend that consecutive, seasons, winning football streak, right? Never having a losing season. Where I think right now this move right now puts Mike Tomlin on the hot seat. As crazy as that sounds, I believe this move puts Mike Tomlin on the hot seat because he went to bat. He had to sign off on this. You know it, and I know it. And right now, on this day, on June 5th, 2025, I think it's a horrible move. I think it's a horrible move. Why am I going to invest in a player, whether it's for a year or two, or take a flyer, a bridge quarterback? Said the same thing when the Giants went out and got Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. They're not long-term fixes. They're not long-term answers. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback. They're not getting that guy. He was that guy. He's not anymore. He's just not. He's just not. And you're trying to put all your eggs in that one basket like the Jets did, and it blew up in their face. And oh, by the way, it got the GM and the head coach fired. It got the head coach and the GM fired. So the news today, the sources he's planning to sign, it comes 80 days since the start of free agency, 70 days after he visited the Steelers. He waited. You know why? Because he was not sure if he wanted to play anymore. That's all. He wasn't sure if he wanted to play. That is a fact. It is a fact. And you're going to take a flyer on a quarterback, on a guy that's not all in. He's just not. Joey, good to hear from you, my friend. He's just not. How do you run your franchise like that? It's desperation. What are you holding on to? Like, what are you holding on to at this point? Thinking you're going to squeeze blood out of a stone here? Magic fairy pixel dust? And get what? Get them to turn back the clock from a couple years ago and win 12, 13, 14 games in a stacked AFC North? No way. Not at all. Not at all. I feel as though Aaron Rodgers has this ability to not only manipulate franchises, but basically keep them at bay. And I believe this move right now, it's going to blow up in Pittsburgh's face. It really is. They're not winning anything. They're not winning anything. They're just not. And these veteran quarterbacks, they want to hang around. They want to hang around. They want to hang around. And then, you got the flip side, right? You got the flip side to this. When you look at a quarterback like, again, I don't know, Carr, maybe, who's out there and he basically said, I just couldn't take the Saints' money. Think about that for a moment. Think about it. Derek Carr was in a predicament, was he not? He had the shoulder injury. He didn't know, NFL future in limbo. What am I going to do? Am I going to stay with the Saints? Am I going to try to squeeze out another season? I've been through the gamut, 11 seasons. I've been an all-pro. I've been a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. I put up some good numbers. I carry myself the right way. You don't really hear much coming out of my mouth. And here we go. I'm going to retire. You know why? Because my body can't do it anymore. My mind doesn't want to have it anymore. My mind's not interested in this anymore, right? Maybe the heart wants it, but the mind and the body are saying no. So I'm not going to do a disservice and just take the money. Just take the money. And that's exactly a guy like Aaron Rodgers. He just can't let it go. And I'm not suggesting Aaron Rodgers should retire. I already gave you my thoughts and sentiment on that. My thing is this. If you're not all in, If you're not all in and it's taking you this long to make a decision, it just tells me you're not all in and you're going to half-ass it. And that's not fair to 52, 53, 55 other men. That's not fair to a coaching staff, a head coach, a GM, an owner, a fan base. I know a lot of Steelers fans. And when they were flirting this flirtation with Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, they were like, keep this guy the hell away from me. I agree. I echo those sentiments. I really do. I echo those sentiments big time. That's all. I mean, look, their odds haven't done anything, by the way. So, de facto leader of the Bunker Boys, go ahead, low key, put some shekels on Pittsburgh. Plus 4,500. Go ahead. 4,500. Go enjoy to win the Super Bowl. That is a stacked division. A stacked division. And Aaron Rodgers, again, the timing, right? NHL Stanley Cup Finals, Game 1, overtime, great thriller, Edmonton and Florida, and boom, NBA Finals tonight, OKC laying 9.5. You got some baseball going on. Don't look now, the Rockies have won 3 straight. I mean, they just swept away the Miami Marlins. Let me make the decision today. I think it's an absolute joke. I think it's an absolute joke. And think about this if you're Pittsburgh, right? You've had Ben Roethlisberger, Hall of Fame quarterback. You've had Russell Wilson, a Hall of Fame quarterback. Now you just signed Aaron Rodgers, a Hall of Fame quarterback, all in the span of 5 seasons. And it feels like a lifetime ago. It feels like a lifetime ago because this guy has nothing left in the tank. And if he proves me wrong, and I don't care about 2 or 3 weeks in a season. If he plays 17, if he throws for 4,000 yards and 33 touchdowns and Pittsburgh wins 10, 11 games, they vie for a divisional championship, they make the playoffs, I'll come on that very next Monday, right? And we know how it operates. We know how it works. The Lunes Mentiroso, Manolo Man Up Mondays. And I will tell you, there you go. There you go. I was 100% wrong. The guy has a little juice, a little gas left in the tank. I don't believe he does, and I think he's not even all in. I don't even think he's half in. So we'll get to a lot of football today. Lloyd Vance around 5. Then you got the NBA Finals. And I don't know if you guys saw this, and I'll get to your comments in a moment. So Adam Silver, for those that can't stand the NBA, when I start talking basketball, you guys, you have your little, wise ass little comments, right? And that's okay because I'm a hoops guy. So Adam Silver is talking about the NBA Finals. I guess he was on one of the networks the other day or this morning. Forgive me, I don't know which one. I don't watch them, but I saw the highlight, the snippet of it. And he's talking about Indiana and OKC. And by our metrics, those 2 markets stink. They're not good markets. They're not. So he was questioned on 2 small market teams in the finals. So he goes, if we were going into a Super Bowl and it was Packers versus Steelers, you guys would celebrate that. Is this guy delusional? Packers and the Steelers? So you're talking about, Green Bay, yeah, community owned, but you're talking about the storied Green Bay Packers, the Frozen Tundra, Lombardi, Star, Horning, the list goes on and on and on. Then you got the Pittsburgh Steelers. By last check, pretty good dynasty in the 70s, won a couple Super Bowls here and there. Is he serious? He knows, we know, no one's going to watch these finals. Yes, I'll flip on the game. I will. Jonathan Marshall will watch. He'll flip on the game because Jonathan Marshall, let me give him credit. He's coming on in about 5 minutes. He said, watch out for OKC last season going into this season. He said OKC is going to be the team to beat. I got to give credit where credit is due. He nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. But you guys know as much as I do, and you guys realize this. No one's going to watch. The eyeballs are going to be they're going to be low unless you're in those markets. And who the hell knows if people are in Indiana or OKC really going to watch? Don't compare it to those 2 storied NFL franchises. I mean, you should have said something like, well, maybe if it was Jacksonville and Carolina in the Super Bowl. You're talking Green Bay and Pittsburgh? Get out of here. That's embarrassing. So we'll get in the NBA Finals. We got some thoughts on that. The NBA as a whole, as far as ratings. NFL. I mentioned you guys this the other day, and it's already coming to fruition. Already. I mentioned watch out for Indianapolis because I think they're in for a long season. Anthony Richardson already with some issues with that shoulder. DJ Nichols getting the first team reps. Something I want to get into Lloyd with OTAs. And also Saquon Barkley went on Chris Long's pod and basically I think gave a generic but kind of eye-opening comment regarding his retirement or future retirement and when that might come about. And I know Eagles fans, some of them are absolutely panicking. I mean, it's only June and some of you guys are already panicking. So we'll dive into that as well. Very good. Game 1, Stanley Cup Finals last night. Very entertaining game. I mean, you have the ebb and flow, the back and forth, the intensity. McJesus with the assist. I know Man's excited about that one. I listen, the Q Factor, my 2 plays, NHL, they were bad last night. We did win on baseball. But not good when we had Florida on the money line. I still have them for the series, but we had them for the money line last night in game 1, a game in which Oilers won late, 45 seconds ago in overtime, 4-3. So we can definitely get your comments on that. Do you believe, I wanted to throw this out there because my question of the day was a simple one. If you're going to watch the NBA Finals, but I feel like maybe I need to edit that. I mean, which finals do you think is going to get more eyeballs? I think I might edit that. Is it going to be the Stanley Cup Finals or is it going to be the NBA Finals? I might have to throw a little curveball on that and edit that during a break and then let you guys kind of run with it. So as I mentioned, we're just cranking up on a Thursday edition, Middays with Q. We are powered by our good friends over at TriX57. Fresh roasted coffee, 20% off your first purchase, BYP20. And of course, play it again. All right, quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side and we have to join us. NBA Finals, Game 1. Is anyone going to watch? Silver's comments. Also, what my Knicks might do when it comes to a head coaching vacancy. Sit back, relax. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up on this Thursday.
Get some of that salary. And who's that guy? Casey Wallace, Isaiah Joe, guys you have not heard of unless you're a real.
Sounds like a big name.
All right, welcome back in, everyone. 20 past the 4 o'clock hour on this Thursday edition of Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here. I hear a little one in the background. What do we have? Do we have the baby speaker on right now for the? By the way, Jonathan Marshall, our very good friend. We need to congratulate. We got to give him Middays with Q. Congratulations. He is a blushing new father to a very handsome little boy who, by the way, we might have to fit for some Knicks garb. I heard a baby monitor in the background. I thought maybe because the Sixers aren't going to even touch where my Knicks went.
I guess he's already trying to make his intro into the media landscape, Q. But yes, parenthood has arrived for me. Sleep schedule is non-existent right now. I'm running on fumes, but I'm here for you.
Hey, listen, that's all we can ask? I mean, how's it going sleeping wise?
2 hours at a time, 3 hours if I'm lucky. If me and my wife are lucky, like we're the key is when he naps, we nap. That's you got
Yeah.
to sneak him in, but he doesn't last more than 3 hours when it comes to his sleep time. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and see, and by the way, this is what happens because I've got jackass listeners that like to be ball breakers, right? So again, they're making fun of the Death Star mic. They're thinking I'm sniffling. My audio was totally off. I got Joey B with the background music on. No, 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 that's not it. Then he fires off with this one: "Kids in the house." I hear baby.
The crazy thing is, he was quiet. He was quiet literally before we got on air, and then on air immediately
Yeah.
on call. It's crazy.
Hey, listen, we'll do a daddy daycare edition of Middays. All right, let's get right into it. We'll get into the NBA Finals in a moment. I do want to get your thoughts on. I mean, surprising here what the Knicks did with Tom Thibodeau and fire him, taking him to the Eastern Conference Finals back to back 50 win seasons. I mean, you and I have talked about this. I was texting you. I said it after game one. I told you the series is over. I said it was a fireable offense. I don't have the fake outrage that others do, but I mean, is this kind of shocking to you?
Q at this point, it's kind of hard to shock me when it comes to head coaching fires. I mean, you see Mike Malone's situation in Denver, an actual champion, right? Not long ago, he loses his job, and so at that point, what head coach in the league currently is above that, right? And so I
Right.
can't be surprised, especially considering Thibs' history, with the Chicago Bulls, the Timberwolves. 5 years is
Yep.
a good amount of time to
Yeah.
leave your mark, and for maybe your voice has gotten stale. Maybe, I mean, look, it wasn't going to last forever in New York
Sure.
with Thibs, right? We know this, right? And so considering how things went down in the Boston series, we talked about that as well. Boston choked that away. They shouldn't have won that series, right? They
Agreed.
played it tight with Detroit, right? And then you lose to Indiana. And so considering the history with Thibs and how sometimes look, the voice may have grown still. I don't know the inner workings of that locker room, but it doesn't shock me. Now, my one question for the Knicks is: okay, you can make the coaching change if you're still this time next year, same situation. Who's the problem then? Are
Sure.
we going to start naming names?
Yeah.
Jalen
I mean,
Brunson, Carl Anthony, like because you can't at a certain point you can't just keep poking away coaches. That's not the
no,
main
and
issue.
there's a couple things coming out, right? There's issues coming out with Cat and the fact that he didn't play defense, and I was going nuts. I was texting you the whole series. I said I can't take this guy anymore. I can't. You
Mhm.
know, he's soft. He wasn't playing both ends of the floor. I was beyond frustrated. And now you have the reports coming out that some of the players were butting heads with Rick Brunson, who's on the
Yeah.
bench. You know, do you retain Brunson? You bring him back. Do you bring back Mo Cheeks? At this point, the way the Eastern Conference is, it's wide open. You got the issues with Tatum and the Celtics. We know the Sixers stink. Everything's contingent upon Embiid. See what they do at number three.
Right.
Orlando, you know, arriving a little early, right? Indiana's Indiana. I can't disrespect them, even though I thought they were the inferior team there in the NBA Finals. You got Cleveland that turned out to be a fraud, as you alluded to. You know, Milwaukee, what's going to happen with Giannis? Point being is the window's right there for the Knicks, and it kind of leads me into this. When you start to look at this vacancy and names out there, and we can, you know, flush through the list of names, which are all over the place. And see, this is what I'm saying, right? This is right. Thought we were broadcasting from KinderCare. I mean, this is what we do. This is what I'm saying. These guys, they are relentless. We're giving them absolutely unbelievable stuff right now. I know that. Listen, the baby in the background, he might be trending here, taken away from the show.
Listen, bring in those sponsors. Come on, let's
Hey,
do it.
yeah, hey, why not, right? Why not? Well, you know, we're brought to you by, you know, what is it, Gerber's? That
Let's
might
do
be.
it.
Now I got the dog barking in the background, so we got a potpourri of everything.
It's too much going
She'll just, yeah, she'll just wake up once in a while and just bark and go right back down to
on.
sleep. So, all right, listen, talk about some of these potential candidates out there, and I'm going to give you a name right
Mhm.
now that you will laugh.
Okay.
And I know it's kind of everyone's talking about Hurley, talking about Jason Kidd, the Van Gundys, the Malones, blah, 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 blah. We never see any head coaches, quote, traded. We just don't.
Right.
Would it be outlandish to think the Knicks or Dolan or Rose don't pick up the phone and call Golden State and see what's up with Steve Kerr? Is that a pipe dream? Is that a goofy dream? Is that?
I think it's a pipe dream. I don't envision Steve Kerr wanting. I don't see that. I have a hard time seeing that. And what would a deal like that look like? And okay, Steve
Well,
Kerr
hell,
in New
look what
York.
we look what the Knicks gave up for Mikal Bridges.
This is true. Okay, so Steve Kerr coaching this current Knicks roster. What does it do for the Knicks?
Right.
Is Steph Curry walking through that door?
No. Well,
Is Klay Thompson
yeah,
walking through that door?
I don't want Klay Thompson, so that's fine. But
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean? So for the Knicks, you got to ask yourself this question: who are you expecting to land? I think Michael Malone is the easy, obvious choice, right? As far as a coach who's proven, has led a team, has been through the battles of developing a team through the tough times, and he's led them to the top. He's a coach that's not going to take any excuses, right? He's going to demand greatness from his players and effort. Can Karl Anthony Towns live up to that? That's the question, right? And so for the Knicks, they have a whole bunch of issues because all of a sudden, all these stories are coming out. Like you said, Rick Brunson, are the issues there, right? Karl Anthony Towns, are players aggravated about his lack of effort or inability to play defense, right? And so there
How
are
can you
many
not?
issues right here with the Knicks. Yeah. And so with the Knicks coming into this season or next season, right? What type of coach can handle, number one, the media pressure in New York, right? The current situation in New York, knowing that you have a Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, and they're, look, to be honest, probably the worst as far as number one, number two duos, one of the worst defensively. Can we say that, right? Can a coach be able to handle and deal with your top two players being cones on defense? This is the reality of the situation. So once you take the coaching problem out of it, when do we get to a point where we question the personnel?
Well, who makes those decisions, right? James
There
Dolan,
you go.
Leon Rose at the end of the
Who
day.
trades 5 first rounders for Mikal Bridges?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Joey sums it up right. James Dolan commented, and he's a nut job. He's a whack job. Doesn't know how to run an organization. Trust fund guy that would rather be playing guitar in his bar band. Inherited that money from his father. But Dolan's not the guy that he once was. I don't think he's as meddling as people make him out to be. I think that move was all on Leon Rose. I think Leon Rose, contrary to what other national pundits might be saying, I think it took guts for Leon Rose to decide we're not going to run it back. We're going to go in a different direction. And I think sometimes organizations are afraid to do that. They don't want to make the change. They don't. Now, on the surface, you say, how in the world do you fire a guy who just brought you to the Eastern Conference Finals, first time since 2000, right? Back-to-back 50-game win season, 23 and 24 in the postseason, number one. And again, let's be honest. And you saw I was arguing with people on X. They're getting on me because I'm talking about the Celtics series. The Celtics blew 2 games back-to-back, game 1 and 2, 20-point leads. The Knicks got bailed out by the Celtics, and then Tatum got injured. If the Knicks don't blow game 1 against the Pacers, do they win the series? I don't know. But what if they lost that series in 7 still to the Pacers? What if they lost it to the Celtics in 7 games? I still believe he was going to get fired. And I felt even more strongly about that after a game 1 collapse against the Pacers, which he failed to make adjustments. And you need to make adjustments in the NBA. I know it's a players play, coaches coach. It's a players league. But come on, man. You have to make adjustments. He didn't trust the bench, and it bit him in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, look, he 5 years, right? 5 years is more than enough time to make an impact and to show yourself to be able to lead a team to the next level. Kudos to him for getting the Knicks to where they have been, right, over recent years. Because prior to that, it was looking dark for that franchise. It was an unserious organization, and I took pleasure in seeing that. But recently, this is an actual serious basketball team, right? But there obviously is a ceiling that they've reached, and like you said. Kudos for management and ownership for deciding like this is where, look, we see a ceiling and we're trying to push through that. The Eastern Conference is open next year. Like it's just, we can make another deep run next year. We have to find the right coach to get the best out of this situation. But like I said before, Q, I'm warning you and the fans, if you're in the same exact conversation this time next year, who are we going to blame then?
Yeah, but also I know what you're saying, right? It's Monday morning quarterbacking, but also too, ultimately, even if they take a step back, I'm not going to sit there and scream on the air. You shouldn't have gotten rid of Thibodeau because I had no problem. I had absolutely no problem with that at all. And I know, contrary to popular belief and what others believe, they're not buying what I'm trying to sell, and that's okay. I'm not looking.
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not trying to pitch anything, right?
Right.
I'm not trying to sell anything. All I'm saying ultimately is that change sometimes is needed. There's nowhere in this life that says just because you're successful and you can't get me to a certain hump or over the hump, or past the hump, or whatever the frig the expression is, over the hump. It does. I can turn around and I can make a change. I'm
Yeah.
entitled to that.
Yeah.
Jonathan Marshall joining us, and follow him on X at John_Marshall3, reporter, anchor, WMUR. Also does the Marshall Pod, Marshall Time Pod, basketball hoops with his brother. You hear that on SR 102. Our good friend Angel Martinez network. By the way, segment, yes, Joey, I believe so. This segment is brought to you by Huggies Blowout Proof Diapers. Now,
Got the check, Huggies. Got the check.
is that let me ask you this. I mean, you were dating a girl, you got married, and now you popped out a baby. So I mean, things we you're like a guard. You go coast to coast, man. You're not even looking to it. You want to go right to the tin. You're not even looking to dish.
Closer.
So like
the
so
anti-Knicks, we actually closed it out. We closed the deal, man.
do you split diaper duty? No pun intended. Is that split
Pretty
down
much.
the middle?
Pretty much. Sometimes it's a team effort. Actually, it's all hands on deck.
Two for
Sometimes,
really?
right?
You just don't. I mean, I
Sometimes,
know when I take
sometimes.
Kiki out, it's just a quick little
Yeah,
whoop
yeah,
and
yeah,
then a
yeah.
wipe into the bag, and that's it.
Sometimes, but it's a learner. I had never changed a diaper before, so I was a rookie at this. But I'm actually a quick learner. Like it's no problem for me. I'm good to go. 1 week is all I need. 1 week of baby mini camp, I'm good to go.
Mark Jackson or Michael Malone make the most sense for the Knicks, but the Knicks going to Nick. I
Michael
don't want any
Malone.
part.
Hey, Q.
I don't want
Hey,
any part of Mark Jackson. And
hey,
Malone couldn't get along with GMs.
here's a question, and this is something that has been a major conversation, and it's a thought that I've had. It goes back to the Becky Hammond comment, right? And she got criticized for it. You know where I'm
On
going
Jalen
with this.
Brunson.
There's only two outliers, a third if you want to put in AI, who actually led a team to the finals. Under 6'3".
Yeah.
Can a guard under 6'3" lead a team to a championship? In today's game where the guards are getting bigger, stronger,
Yeah. I mean, I
without
hear what you're saying, but
without a secondary option that teams have to account for, right? Like, so Mikal Bridges, OG, we know who those guys are, but they aren't dynamic.
yeah, but
Right?
technically, don't we list small guards or undersized guards? You're listed at 6'1" or shorter. Would you say 6'3"?
I said 6'3" and under.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think that's
It
I think that's a rough comment. And I'm trying to think. I mean, the first name that came to mind, but he was actually 6'7", was Wes Unsold, and he played both. I mean, he could have been a guard and a forward if you think about it. And we're talking about different eras, as you mentioned, right? I mean, he was really primarily a shooter, but can
yeah,
bring the ball up. And I'm trying to think. I mean, Iverson's
it's just tough.
your best barometer, but he led him to the NBA Finals.
Exactly. Isaiah Thomas obviously is one of the early names that come
There
to
you go.
mind.
That's the outlier, right?
You know what I mean?
That's the outlier. That's exactly it. That's the outlier. Isaiah
I'm not
Thomas.
saying it can't be done, but it has to be more than just Brunson being your main dynamic playmaker. I don't think anybody's going to say give the ball to OG and Mikal, work out.
No.
It's not. It's just that's not their games. And so for the Knicks, you have to address that issue. You can't just have heavy doses of Jalen Brunson, talented, but at 6'1", there are limitations. You gotta add a secondary guy. Even like look at Indiana, a Ryan Nimhard.
Yeah.
If you have a guy like that, at least, how much more dynamic can your offense be?
That the Pacers team, I still believe they were inferior to the Knicks. Now, I was also nervous about the series, but they beat the Knicks, and now they're in the NBA Finals. They're 9.5-point dogs tonight against OKC. A lot of people think they're going to get dog walked against the Thunder. I think the Thunder are more talented. I think they're more physical, but the question is going to be, can OKC keep up with their pace? I think you and I maybe we agree, maybe we don't. If the Pacers are going to win this series,
Yeah.
I mean, do you have these games at like a $1.25, a $1.28?
Yeah, you have to, right? You have to, and that means that you're not having any issues with OKC's defense. The offense is rolling. You're getting guys like Pascal Siakam, Aaron Nesmith is maybe hitting his shots, right? You're having all those guys clicking on all cylinders. But the thing with OKC is, to me, yes, defensively, that's where they hang their hats on. But these are some young guys that can get out and go. All these
Right.
guys can get the board, they can push it. Alex Caruso has been amazing for this team. You got a case in Wallace who can defend and push the rock. We know about SGA, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren. Like, this is a squad of young guys that can get it and go. And I love both. I love this matchup because it's two teams that have basketball players, right? Guys that can actually play both ends of the floor. They can defend, and they aren't afraid to make a play with the ball in their hands. They have that confidence. Rick Carlisle, Mark Daigneault, they've given these young guys a confidence to perform. You see a TJ McConnell for Indiana, Ben Shepherd.
He annoys the hell out of
Like,
me. He's
but
such
he
a
gets the
gnat.
job done, though. He gets the
Yeah,
job
and
done. You know?
Siakam's a Nick killer. I mean,
Yeah,
even my buddy was texting me. He's like, I didn't think Siakam was this good. I was like, no, 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 no. Siakam is
no,
really
he's,
good. But
he's
listen,
tough.
OKC, and because you're on the air, and while you're on the air, I mentioned this right before you came on. You called it. You said last year going into this season, it wouldn't shock you if OKC came out of the Western Conference, right? I mean, you were very high on OKC, way before,
Yeah.
way before many people that claim to know basketball and talk basketball for a living and get paid handsomely to do it even
Yeah,
started talking about OKC. So
yeah,
credit where credit is due. I just think it's a bad matchup for
yeah,
Indiana. I
yeah,
really do. I look at OKC and I look at their bench, I look at their depth, I look at their roster, I look at their athleticism, I look at their wings, but then again, I look at the MVP. And to me, that's the X factor, is it not?
mm,
Anytime you get to the NBA finals, that's the X factor. Where they really, you know, if you sat there and said they were really tested in the playoffs, Denver, okay? But again, look what they did with Memphis. Look what they did against Minnesota.
yeah.
I think this is a bad matchup for Indiana. And I guess right now, if you handicap it for me,
Mm.
is this the Thunder's time? Do you foresee the Thunder getting past Indiana relatively easy? Can you see this game series being a 6-game series? Can you beat a 7-game series?
I don't see a 7 game series. I don't see. I don't think. I got to give Indiana respect, right? Like, they've made it this far. I'm not going to just discredit what this
Yep.
team has done. They have a great coach and a championship level coach in Rick Carlisle. You got to give credit to that. They have a guy in Halliburton who can catch fire, a guy in Siakam who has won a championship with Toronto. They
Yep.
have a style of
Pretty
play
impressive.
that they have a style of play. They have an identity, right? A lot of teams don't know what they're doing half the time, right? So when you couple the coaching with their identity, that's going to be a tough out regardless, right? And so I can see this going 6 games. Would it shock me if OKC 1-5? No, but this is their time, right? And I've really paid attention to this team 2 years ago, right? Just seeing what they were building and the promising signs from a guy like a Jalen Williams and SGA and the additions of Alex Caruso, the development of Lou Dort starring in his role as a defensive guy, right? And seeing the pieces that they're putting together and just the chemistry and knowing that last year's experience, to me, I don't think people gave enough credit to their experience last year. I think they used that against them as like, we don't trust this team in the playoffs. But that was a learning experience to me for a Thunder team, right? They come back this year, best record in the Western Conference. Oh, and by the way, SGA doubled down again.
Yep.
This time I'm the MVP.
Yeah.
No questions asked. You face the question marks from national media. Nobody's scared. Nobody respects them. It's all about the Lakers, the Warriors, the Clippers. All those teams are gone. You faced the Denver Nuggets, and Joker was on crazy. Like, to me, beating the Denver Nuggets and the Joker, to me, that's still the deal. They grew up.
Yeah.
Beating Denver and the way that they did it, that to
Eh,
me showed me they're ready. They're ready.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
And it
this
almost
this
tells
is their
me
moment.
that, they got through their biggest hurdle. Now it's almost like,
They did. Yeah.
yeah.
And we saw them blow. What was it? The game one, they blew that game late, right? They had to make some runs, throughout the series. They had to face Jokic making some unbelievable plays and shots,
Sure.
and they battled through that. And so, for a team that nobody said was championship quality, they showed a lot in that Denver series, right? And then against Minnesota, quick work,
Yeah, I
easy.
think I'll tell you, I think an X factor too, maybe sneaky for
Mhm.
MVP is Jalen Williams.
Yeah, a guy who people were questioning, right? Can he be the secondary guy that this team needs? But I'm looking at guys like Cason Wallace, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso. I think those three guys can have a major impact. And also the front court matchup with Isaiah Hartenstein, Chet Holmgren versus Siakam, Miles Turner. I think that would be huge as well. But those X factor guys, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace, defensively, but also hitting shots, being a presence with the rock, making plays that you can't account for. Those are the guys that I'm looking at in this series that can really swing this one. SGA is going to get his.
Yeah.
Jalen's going to get his. But those guys that I just mentioned, I'm excited to see what they do and how they can swing this series.
Game one is this evening. I saw a bet already laid about 1.5 on the Thunder to win the series. I mean, they are a heavy favorite. This series feels to me like the Nets versus the Lakers. I think that series was 5 games too.
Sounds about right. And this series could very well go 5 games. Like, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't. I don't see it going above 6 games though. 6 games maximum. 5 games to me is the safe spot. That's the safe spot.
Yeah. And I'm trying.
Five
I
games.
think you know what? You know what? That 2001-02 they swept the Nets.
With
They
Jason
swept them.
Kidd, Kenyon Martin, Kerry Kittles.
That was a great. I mean, that was a great team.
That wasn't a bad Nets team, actually.
No, they took care of the
Richard
Celtics in
Jefferson,
six
I think.
games.
Yeah.
That team was absolutely stacked. Adam Silver, before I let you get out of here, John DeMarshall kind enough to join us for a couple moments. Adam Silver, I don't know, maybe he's got to learn a little more of history of sports, kind of comparing tonight's finals in small markets to say, hey, if Pittsburgh and Green Bay was playing in the Super Bowl, like those are small markets, would you still watch? And I'm thinking to myself, come on, you're talking about two historic franchises. I mean, is there a bias when it comes to these small markets? I kind of tweeted out, I know I'm saying it because I don't think anyone gives a rat you know what about this finals. Now, you're going to watch it. I'm going to flip through, but I still have hatred for the Pacers. I want them to get
Right.
smacked. If the Knicks are in it, then it's a different story. I'm glued. I'm glued to
Right.
the TV, right?
Right.
But I just feel as though Adam Silver is a little delusional with that comment because Silver knows he's a forward thinking type of commissioner, right? And they are trying to figure out ways to get more eyeballs to the product. And a lot of guys, when I talk NBA on the show, they'll tune out for a couple minutes because they're not NBA guys. They think the sport is saturated. It's all about pick and roll, 3-point shots, big man shooting from beyond the arc. It's not like it was 15, 20, 25 years ago. So with that being said, I kind of lead you down the path to this. I don't believe these ratings are going to do very well. And I kind of threw it out there, more eyeballs, the Stanley Cup finals or the NBA finals. So I ask you that first. And then secondly, do you believe that this is a sexy matchup, even for the, diehard NBA fan?
It's a tough one, Q. It's a tough one. For the diehard NBA fan, you value an SGA. He's one of my favorite guys to watch in the
Could be
league.
the face of the
Could
league.
be. And the MVP.
Yeah,
Therese
sure.
Halliburton.
Oh, can't stand him, but go ahead.
But that's what I mean. He's sort of taken on a role where people just can't stand him. Even his game is so unorthodox, right? It's like,
Oh,
why is he?
horrible.
How
So
is he
ugly.
good, right? So as like a legitimate, like true passionate NBA fan, I'm looking forward to seeing these two teams play because I value how they've built these teams, right? Now, in a sense of we aren't seeing the LeBron Jameses, the Steph Currys, the Kevin
Sure.
Durant's.
Yep.
It's deflating because you're used to seeing these iconic names in the finals: Kobe, Shaq, Mike,
Sure.
right?
You
Like
get
we're
spoiled. Well, because
Tim
those are
Duncan.
also the teams that were dominating left and right.
Exactly, and so rather than being a big market or small market issue, I think it's a household name issue. Exactly. Right?
Right.
Because if a Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, OKC Thunder situation versus Miami Heat with LeBron, Chris Bosh, and D Wade, that was an exciting matchup, and it featured the Thunder. But these are exciting young names that we're talking about in KD and Russell Westbrook, right? And so I don't think a majority of fans have given themselves an opportunity, but also I don't think the media has given an opportunity for fans to appreciate what SGA is doing and what Halliburton is doing throughout the regular season. Because all the conversation in the Eastern Conference was about the Cavaliers and the Celtics, and then the Knicks. In the Western Conference, even though the Thunder were the best team by far,
Denver.
the conversation was what? LeBron James and Luka.
LeBron James.
Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler.
Anthony Edwards, yep.
And so when you're presented with these names and they're not playing anymore, it's like we don't know these guys. We don't it's not recognizable, right? And so the ratings probably will be low, but I hope that people at least take a chance and appreciate how these teams have been built, because you can't have it both ways. You can't, on one hand, complain about super teams, right?
Right.
Teaming up, and then complain about a team like the Pacers and how they've been able to draft
that's a fair
guys,
point.
right? You know,
that's a fair point.
You can't have it like which one is it, right? So that's my stance on it.
Let me hit you up with a little rapid fire here. Brian on Facebook says, do you think that Brunson's going to go too, as far as the coaching staff with the Knicks?
As long as Jalen Brunson's there, no.
Yeah, that would make for a very
that would be awkward.
Correct.
Like you're just adding fuel to the fire of what they already have a lot going on.
Yep.
I don't see that happening.
Matt in Wilmington chimes in. Always love the spots with Jonathan Q. Keep them rolling. Jonathan, question for you. Do you think the Sixers are going to trade the number 3 pick for another star?
Wow. That's the question of the summer for the Sixers.
Yep.
So for another star, in my mind, okay, who would that star be? Maybe a Kevin Durant. Does Phoenix, are they looking to rebuild maybe with a number 3 option for them? Would that sort of restart that franchise? Possibly. I say they stay at number 3 and go with either an Ace Bailey, whoever between Ace Bailey or Dylan Harper. I think that would be the pick personally. But it's hard for me to envision them really getting the star that fans may want. I'm drawing blanks as far as thinking about who that guy could be outside of a Kevin Durant, but I don't know. I'm having a hard time thinking. I'm having a hard time saying
you're not getting Giannis to put him on the floor with Embiid, so
no. And to me, trading for a star would mean you're going all in once again. You're banking that Embiid and PG are going to be right, versus doing the prudent thing and totally ignoring Embiid and PG and doing what's right for this roster and building for the future.
Jay in Claymont chimes in, listening on my YouTube channel. Q, curious to get Jonathan's thoughts on Bronny James. I know everyone's been talking about kind of his rocky rookie season. Does Jonathan actually think he can be a serviceable, and he says that, quote, serviceable player in the league? And he hits me up on Facebook, I should say, with that question. What do you think about Bronny?
Based off what I saw this year, he's not ready for consistent NBA minutes. The question is, what is the vision you have for Bronny? What is his role in this league, and can he develop into that type of guy? They're saying he's a 3-and-D type of guy, mentioning the names of Drew Holiday. I haven't seen that consistent jumper yet, right? And so he has to find his superpower in the league. What is that? We haven't seen it yet. I haven't even seen maybe a glimpse of it yet. I know in the G League he's been able to find his confidence, and so I think maybe right now the best option for him is to continue to develop and hone his skills and find his way in the G League for a few games next year, and maybe he can find himself with the big club again consistently. But right now, as far as playing playoff minutes, I don't think he's ready for that. For a bad NBA team, why not? He can get minutes. There's plenty of guys across the league who are getting minutes on teams that you don't even pay attention to. You know, watch the Blazers, watch the Jazz, right? Sure, Bronny James could be an NBA player on one of these rosters, but as far as being a viable player to a winning team, that remains to be said. He has to find himself.
All right, and then lastly, this obviously caused a little controversy. Well, I caused my own controversy on my show because I'm my own worst enemy. Sarge in Delaware on X chimes in. Hey, Jonathan, I'm curious. Who's to blame for the Knicks' failures? Is it the Death Star Mike that everyone seems to enjoy Hughes has? Or I'm reading it right now. Or is it the fact that Q had the audacity to turn around and go against the Knicks in Game 5 and then bet on them? What's worse?
I got an even better answer. It's the New York sports curse, and I love it. It's the New York curse. You guys celebrated like you won a championship after
Yeah,
beating the
but
Celtics.
hold on. Don't lie. Why are you? Hold on a second. I have our
You had a parade.
No. That's not. No.
Come on,
Listen,
Q.
listen. I'll be quiet because the kid's sleeping. I'll give you that. That's fine. I'll give you that. But all I'm going to say is, I'm going back to a comment that I text you.
Uh-huh.
Oh, here you go. Yeah. I wrote, that was a huge effing turnover. Go to the rim, 6-point swing. Oh, that was on the Bridges when he was not out of bounds.
Mm-hmm.
And you wrote, they were going for the block. The league is soft. Then you laugh out loud. Relax, Q. It's a wrap. Quote, these aren't the Celtics. Now, two things. I told you the series was over after game 1. Did I not say that?
You did?
Okay. So then I don't want to hear this. I was celebrating after the Boston series. I was happy that they won and got back to a place they haven't been before. So like I said, I don't want to hear this nonsense. Like, and
your fellow fans, though. Your fellow fans after the game, like
that's
you were
not my
guys.
fault. I don't have control over that.
You guys got a little too confident. You got a little too cocky. You thought Indiana was just going to lay down. And now
hold on a second. Right. So you're going to pin that on me. But yet, if the little baby turns around and goes pee-pee, right, is that Huggies' fault? You're going to blame Huggies? What are you going to do?
Listen, all I'm saying is this. I saw a parade outside of MSG on my feed. I saw a parade. I'm like, what? This is only the second round, right? I was confused, highly confused. You know what the issue is? You guys built your roster to beat the Celtics. Mission accomplished, Q. Congratulations. You beat the Celtics.
See, again, you're coming in. We're closing out the segment, and instead of just enjoying the segment, and I'm giving you all the love for being a new dad, and you're supposed to be magnanimous and humble. You come off firing off with that kind of nonsense, which is just unacceptable. Oh, by the way, hold on. I'm not going to feel bad if your running back decides to retire mid-season.
We got a Super Bowl. Y'all didn't out of him. It's fine. But hey, you always got there's Jackson Dart to look forward to. Good luck with that. Good luck.
I hear the baby crying.
Good luck with Jackson Dart. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, I'm telling you right now.
It can't be worse than Danny Dimes, right? Can't be.
He's going to get Nicholas is going to start in Indianapolis and light up the world on fire. Apparently taking a little bit of offense because I said the Huggies joke. I mean, I'm allowed to joke with Jonathan. I'm only known for 20-something odd years. Right? Here we go. See, right away, he's getting to you like Vince did before game 1. That was the problem. I got mushed. The listener, because they want to see me miserable. They can't sit back and just enjoy me happy. They want me to come on the air because they know miserable Q is the best kind. It's the entertaining.
Here's something to look forward to for next year. Mitchell Robinson, your boy Mitchell Robinson.
Love him.
He put out a video.
Yeah, shooting jumpers.
30 out of 50 foul shots.
Okay, I thought it was 40 out of 60, but go ahead. Yeah.
It says 30 out of 50. So professional ball player in the gym by himself making 30 out of 50. We love it. We love to hear. We love to hear.
I will say this. My Knicks will make another run next year. The Giants are going to be bad. The Yankees are probably going to blow it in the ALCS. The Rangers are rebuilding. But St. John's. Oh, real quick, before I let you go, we got.
Can they shoot? Can St. John shoot? Can they get some shooters?
Well, I'm not concerned about that. It's the free throws. We were talking about this the other day because I know you are a college savant as well. We were talking about different markets embracing different teams. So I mentioned that Washington has always been a football town. And one of the commenters brought up a pretty good exception to the rule. Mm-hmm. But again, if you went back to the 80s. So if you're talking Georgetown back in the heyday, or the then Redskins, now Commanders back in the heyday, is that a college hoops town or was that a football town? Now you've worked in markets. You've worked in different markets.
Wow. Is DC a college hoops town or football town?
Now I'm going back to those days when the Big East was the Big East and Washington was winning championships.
And it was an even different landscape back then when it comes to college basketball in
Of
the
course
80s,
it
right?
was.
Compared to now where it's just it doesn't have the same stronghold, right? You're talking about John Thompson, Patrick Ewing, those Georgetown teams which came
Chrissy
to prominence.
Mullins, Louis Carnesecca. Yep. Raleigh
The,
Massimino.
man, ah, I'm going to say back then, I'm gonna give the edge to Georgetown hoops.
Oh man, I've been so off this week. I mean, my picks have been horrible. My takes have just been outlandish. I mean, that's just man. I can't even buy a friend on the air. All right, brother. Listen, next week we'll continue the NBA
Sure,
talk because I want to talk
for
more as the
sure,
finals
for sure.
kind of like keeps going, if you will.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, well, we don't know. We don't know. See that? There you go. See,
Draft coming up too. Got
this
the draft
this
coming
is
up
what
too.
happens, right? That's right. The facto leader of the Bunker Boys. He's the one that brought it up. So here we go. So here we
I
go.
mean, the Georgetown logo was a cultural
Of
phenomenon.
course, no doubt.
It's just yeah, man.
Black socks,
Tough to go
black
against
sneakers,
that.
like Tyson back in the day.
It's tough to go against that. It's tough.
All right, brother. I always appreciate a couple moments, man, and thanks for breaking the balls a little bit and sticking it to me. Hey, congrats, and honestly,
Thank you.
I hope you get a solid 8 hours sleep, and I'm not being sarcastic.
Apparently, I'm not going to get that until 2 months, 3 months. So I'm here. I'm here, Q. I'm here.
Well, I mean,
I'm existing.
listen. You decide. You're the floor general.
That's right.
As soon as the ball is inbound, you want to go boom.
That's true.
You
That's
you
true.
want to go right up and down.
That's true. That's true.
All right, brother. I appreciate you.
All right, Q.
All right, there you have it, our guy, Jonathan Marshall. Quick timeout. We will come back on the other side as we are fast approaching 5 o'clock. Do not go anywhere. 60 to play with. We'll take you up to 6. All right, 5 o'clock straight up. Good stuff from Jonathan Marshall. Appreciate him tuning in. Let me get to some of your comments. Obviously, if you guys are just joining us, the news of the day is Aaron Rodgers signing with the Steelers. And I'm sure there are a lot of Steelers fans that are absolutely ecstatic over the signing. I would probably say the legit Steelers fans. Late to the party, so fortunately I miscues Rodgers rant because nobody actually cares. What we do care about is Travis Hunter looking like a lockdown corner and quicker than BTJ. Wow, man. I wonder how Vince is doing today, knowing that he probably has to just give away a lot of his Steelers jerseys, right? I mean, I know for a fact he's got a lot of them. They're probably just sitting there. So now why not? Just get rid of them. Hand them off. Goodwill them. Salvation Army. You don't need them anymore. You're all about the Jags. You're all about the Jags. The problem now is if the Steelers found a way to win a couple games and they're in contention in the North and your Jags are spitting the bit in the South, oh, mamacito, you can't go back. You can't go back to that, Vincent. You can't. It's okay, Q. You can always have Sam Darnold fall back on when all your other picks and takes go cold. On a Thursday? On a Thursday, you're going to fire back in me like that? Oh, my God. Are you kidding me? I'm not. Really? Just rub a little NyQuil on the baby's lips? What about whiskey? I thought you did that. Right? Whiskey? Right? I'm not even going to read the second comment, man. So don't even worry about it. NyQuil is much better than whiskey, which is what, which you used as a young father. Now all my kids are alcohol. Come on, man. But whiskey, right? Isn't that for also when the baby they're teething, right? They're teething. That's when you give them the whiskey. I don't know why Vince is coming in like that today, though. I mean, I don't know what you're wound up today. You're wound up. I understand exactly why you're aggravated today. It's understandable because deep down you were thinking to yourself, this would never happen. The Steelers would never go and get a quarterback. No more Russell Wilson, no more Justin Fields. Ben Roethlisberger's not walking through that door. Terry Bradshaw's not walking through that door. So now they got Aaron Rodgers. You got a legit bona fide, veteran bridge quarterback for maybe half a season, and you're stuck with Trevor Lawrence. I get it. I understand. I would be upset too. I would be very upset too. Kevin, North Jersey, chiming in. Q, I actually think Rodgers has a little bit left in the tank. You're not giving him as much credit as others. He can still come in, run an offense. I think he's going to be a perfect complementary fit under Tomlin. Look for the Steelers to actually surprise. So that either sounds like a friend of Vince's or that is a delusional Steelers fan. I know a lot of Steelers fans. They're not liking this move at all. They're not liking this move at all. And I understand why. Because he's not all in. That's all. He's just not all in. Think about this for a minute. I'll equate it. It's like dating, right? It's like dating. You need to know. You go out on a couple dates, a little flirtation, right? You have a couple pops, couple drinks, you go to a nice restaurant or movies or a cup of coffee, whatever the young bucks, whatever the young kids do today. And you have that little that courtship. And then eventually it's kind of time. Holidays right around the corner. You want to come in, do you want to meet the parents? Am I going to meet the parents? So I got to meet the friends because the friends got to sign off on everything, right? Because if they don't, then you're out. You're Kaputski. So I need that commitment. You got to be all in. Holidays right around the corner. Is it a unwritten rule that we're doing a family thing? Is it a unwritten rule every weekend you're going to get together? Which tells me you're in a relationship. That's a committed relationship. Aaron Rodgers is not that guy. He's not. That's the problem. That's the problem. And these franchises don't see it. They don't. And Vince, you're one of these guys. You can't see it. Trevor Lawrence, aka Sunshine, is not going to be a sneaky MVP pick. By the way, excellent reference to Remember the Titans. Excellent reference to Ronnie Bass. Credit on that one. You sound like Vince Vaughn talking to his paralegal. Which is a great movie. That is a great. My taxes are not in line, John. You know that. I'm just saying that's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is that guy. He won't fully commit. Period. He won't do it. He won't commit. He just won't, and that's the problem. And now you're stuck with that. By the way, NFL. Lloyd's going to join us in a couple moments, but NFL. Anthony Richardson banged up. Rodgers signing with the Steelers. Saquon is getting every Eagle fan up in arms. Apparently, Russell Wilson's now going to be a mentor. We'll see how that plays out. You got a lot of news and notes. OTAs will kind of run through the gamut. Got a couple of storylines for Lloyd and a couple of questions I want to fire off at him as well. So we'll get to that. 5 o'clock, straight up. 16 a book, 60 to play with. Remember, this is a Thursday edition of Middays with Q. We are powered by our good friends over at TriX57. Also, fresh roasted coffee. 20% off your first purchase, BYP20. Played against Sports, 2 locations, Deptford and Mount Laurel. Deptford, 1450 Clements Bridge Road. And they get you some good value for your buck, use sports equipment, and more. Keep the comments coming. And I know you guys are very entertained when we go to the commercial break. There will be no bumper music right now on this Thursday. There might be on a What the Frig Friday edition of Middays, but on this Thursday, there will be no bumper music. We'll punch up Lloyd in a second. Keep it locked in on the Thursday edition of Middays with Q. All right, 5:05 on a busy Thursday edition, Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock. There he is, that man right there, our good friend Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. Kind enough to join us on a very busy Thursday edition where Lloyd, it's like the listeners and the commenters have not missed a beat. I've been getting my balls broke left and right. They are chirping. They are just dying. They are clamoring for some NFL talk. So with that, we welcome in our good friend, our NFL insider, Lloyd Vance, at Lloyd Vance. You can hear him, Lloyd Vance Insider Football on SR 1029. The game, he joins me pretty much every single week with Back Your Play, our sports gambling pod, and of course, throughout the football season and the off season. What is going on, my friend? How are you been?
Doing good, Q. You're about 90 days away or so from the start of the season, and can't get here soon enough. But there's always news around the league to talk about.
Well, and the news today, Aaron Rodgers, which I guess was the worst kept secret in the NFL, signing that 1 year deal or contract, I should say, with the uh, Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, right away, like we're going to grade a friggin' move. I just don't get it. People just clamoring for some content. It just, with that being said, I've said this the last hour at nauseum. I think this is a horrible move for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It does nothing odds wise for them. They still sit at 45 plus 4,500 to win the Super Bowl. I don't believe he's all in at all. And if you're all in, then you're not all in, and he's not all in, and that's the problem. They're banking on this guy to be a savior for a season or two. I think the body's going to break down. I don't care about the offense, and everyone looking at this is going to be an explosive. I'm not buying it at all, and the fact that he waited tells me Pittsburgh ultimately knew they had a shot at him signing, but it also tells me that he was kind of undecided on his future, and that worries me a little bit if I'm a Steelers fan.
Yeah, Q. It's a move where we anticipated. I was actually surprised that the Steelers allowed him to kind of dictate the narrative and waited for him. But all signs pointed to that. After the draft, they didn't really get anybody in the draft, and then free agency, they didn't really do a lot. They brought Mason Rudolph back, Will Howard, who's a developmental quarterback. But when you look at Rodgers, I kind of with you in terms of who is he at this stage in his career. He's 41. He'll be 42 later in the season. Last season, he played 72 games. He did throw for 38, 97, 28 TDs, 11 touchdowns. But I was talking about this on my show. There's really no signature game for him last year where he dominated and put up some big numbers. I guess, in a win over Jacksonville in week 15, you guys say, okay, he was all right in that game. He threw 3 TDs in that game. But he's just not a difference maker in this stage of his career. And when you look at the way the Steelers are kind of architected, yes, they have Warren at the running back position, and they have the Iowa rookie coming in there running back, and DK Metcalf. But other than that, there's really not a lot of playmakers. And you're right. You're like a quarterback at this age. Is he going to raise the level of the boats?
Well, that's the other issue, right? Is he going to be upright for 17 games? And I feel this move kind of reeks of desperation, right? You didn't have Russell Wilson or Justin Fields under contract going into next year. You had an opportunity to draft Sanders. You had an opportunity to draft quarterbacks multiple times throughout the draft. You didn't. So you must have knew that there was some type of flirting going on where you felt, okay, we can grab this guy. Now he's 40, 41. Again, he's just been banged up over the last several years. I mean, it's just how it is. I mean, he's taken a lot of sacks too. He was sacked 40 times last year. So you're asking a guy his age, already a little brittle, stay in the pocket, hang in the pocket, and in a very stacked AFC North. Do you believe this was a desperation move, or you believe that the Steelers actually feel to a man to themselves that, okay, we keep him upright. He gives us, 3,800 yards, 25 touchdowns, 4 picks, and he plays 17 weeks. We got an opportunity to make the playoffs, and then we can roll the dice. We can take our chances with this guy.
Well, Q, there really were a lot of opportunities for Aaron Rodgers out there. Let's face it, the Raiders went in another direction in terms of trading for Geno Smith. And then the Vikings said, we're going with J.J. McCarthy, and the other teams got their quarterbacks in the draft. So, there really was not a lot of opportunities for him out there. And the Steelers have been looking for a QB since Ben Roethlisberger retired. So it's just been a kind of revolving door. Nobody could get it done, whether it's Kenny Pickett, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, all these guys, had some success. We know that Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. But at this time, the barometer's kind of changed, and they need a quarterback to step in there and be a difference maker. And Aaron Rodgers is going to get his opportunity, but as you're saying, he loses the 2023 season to that bad Achilles injury, never really kind of recovered. Last year, he kind of was tentative in the pocket, could not move the way he used to. And at his age, you got to wonder, because Tom Brady, yes, he played well at that age, but most quarterbacks are done at that time.
Lloyd Vance kind enough to join us on a Thursday edition, Middays with Q, 12 past 5 o'clock hour on the East Coast. Real quick, Mets looking to take 3 of 4 from the Dodgers. They're up 4-3 early. Phils are getting absolutely hammered up in Canada against the Blue Jays 9-1. Baltimore and Seattle knotted up at 3 apiece, top of the 6. Quarterbacks, right? So let's go to Indianapolis. And I've been texting you this. I think Daniel Jones is going to have an opportunity to supplant Anthony Richardson. And then we come to learn that Anthony Richardson is dealing with a shoulder injury, which means Nichols is going to get first-team reps. I'm thinking about this when we start to look at win totals and futures, and we break down the divisions. We'll do it on the show, but we always do it on Back Your Play. I think the Colts are set up for a really long season, and maybe I overvalued this kid's talent. I had him as a potential dark horse MVP last year because of the escapability, the strong arm. He can scramble. They had a pretty decent offense. I mean, especially in the AFC South, when you compare all things being equal, and it just never came to fruition. And he got banged up and he was sacked and, benched, and then Flacco came in. I feel as though going into this season, it's almost like the NHL with a goalie, right? If you have 2 goalies, that means you don't have a goalie. And now you bring in Daniel Jones, who, look, Daniel Jones won a playoff game on the road. That's all I can say about Daniel Jones at this point of his career. He won a playoff game on the road for the Giants, and he gives you flashes, but he's also at times, bad quarterback. But this might be a great spot for him to supplant that job, and then they got to delegate and put Richardson to the bench.
Yeah, Q, it's going to be interesting because we know Jim Irsay unfortunately passed away a couple of weeks ago, and I thought he was going to put some pressure on Chris Bauer, the general manager, and as well as Shane Steichen, the head coach there, because they're going on year 3 with Richardson as a quarterback, and they kind of reached for him.
Yes,
a guy that only had 15 or less starts at Florida, and you're intrigued by his athleticism. Is he like a Lamar Jackson light? But the thing is, he cannot stay healthy, runs at inopportune moments, and he's hurt just a lot. He's just not playing a lot of games. And the biggest thing is when he does play, his accuracy, Q, is not NFL standard. It's around 51% or so. So a lot of question marks coming this season. And now with this shoulder injury, you have to wonder, is he ever going to really be healthy? Because as you were talking about, he's a dual threat guy. A lot of times he's taking on these tacklers and not sliding and not making good decisions. So, Daniel Jones, I believe, is going to get his opportunity there. And then it's desperation time for Shane Steichen, because he was supposed to be the guru coming over from the Eagles, bringing that playbook from 2017 championship team, but it's just not worked out for the Colts.
I think the 8-9 record by the Colts, smoke and mirrors, right? Winning a couple games with Flacco, as we alluded to. Then you've got, you look at that division as a whole. The Titans going with a rookie quarterback. Jacksonville, obviously, with Hunter now. The loss of Ingram, I think, hurts. We're waiting to see if Trevor Lawrence will take that next step, and then C.J. Stroud. As far as the quarterbacks, here's something I threw out the other day. So when you look at the NFL, and we know there's such parity at times in the NFL, and the argument's always made year in and year out, if you win 5 or 6 games, you can turn around and flip the script, and you can win 10 and 11 and make the playoffs. And we all know about the NFC East and the back-to-back champs and all that kind of stuff in the history in that division. But these teams that we don't talk too much about, Carolina, right? Because of their quarterback situation. They're just kind of lingering. I don't even think we talk enough about Bo Nix and Denver and Sean Payton, Chicago and Williams. Arizona and Kyler Murray. You look at some of these quarterbacks, these young quarterbacks, been in the league a couple years, waiting for them to take that next step. Now, Jaden Daniels burst on the scene, exception to the rule, the outlier. Season 1, we'll see what he does in season 2. But is there a young quarterback on your radar or young quarterbacks on your radar that you're waiting to see sink or swim? Are they ready to take that next step with their respective teams?
It's going to be a fun year to watch, Q, because as always, the quarterback carousel spins, and you got these rookies coming in. A couple quarterbacks I'm going to have my eye on and see if they're going to play well. We talked about Aaron Rodgers, but how about with the New York Jets? Justin Fields is coming in there. Aaron Glenn is bringing a more conservative playbook, kind of fitting into what Justin Fields can do in terms of his dual threat ability, a lot of read options, and also he has that rapport with Wilson there,
Yep.
and he had Breece Hall at running back. So I want to see what Justin Fields can do. They changed everything with that team. Going to be interesting to see what happens there. Obviously, you got to look at Tennessee. Last year, 3-14. Do they get any better? Brian Callahan is on a hot seat there. Their head coach already, as crazy as it sounds, in his second season. Cam Ward's coming in there. Everybody I've talked to said he's looked good in camp in terms of getting the ball out of his hands. He has a live arm. So he may be
able to get a pass, though, with a rookie quarterback? Because, there's going to be growing pains.
Yeah, I think, look, they're a 3-win team before. Maybe if they can get to 6 wins, they can start building some things.
But my point is, does that save Callahan is what I'm asking you?
No. They got rid of Rand Carthon, their general manager, last season. One and done. And if I'm Callahan, you got to be feeling the heat. So, Ward's coming in there. We've seen this quite often with a lot of these quarterbacks. They're drafted high, and then they're on their second coach before we know it. So, Callahan on the hot seat. And Ward, I think he's going to have some growing pains, as you were saying. This division, though, you can get some wins because Houston won it last year with only 10 wins. So there are some wins to be had out there. But I think he'll improve that team, but it may not save Callahan's job. So that's another one we're looking at in terms of can a quarterback make another leap. How about the Vikings? J.J. McCarthy's coming off a very bad injury. He does have Justin Jefferson there and the tight end as well. 14-win team that kind of laid an egg in the playoffs. And is McCarthy going to be ready to go? Everybody's saying that he's healthy, ready to go in. But you have to see real game action. So there are a couple of quarterbacks, the younger ones, that I'm going to have my eye on.
I like the thought on Justin Fields because, low risk and potentially high reward if you can squeeze 3, 4, 5 years out of him as a starter. The Cam Ward take is interesting because Callahan basically said, hey, man, relax. Everyone starts off pretty hot, but this is the NFL, right? It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. I guess that was him making a point. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. Kind of stay even keel. And then you mentioned McCarthy out of Minnesota. That's a team that won 14 games. Now, as much as the guys like to hammer me on slinging Sammy Darnold, I know he didn't play well against Detroit to wrap it up with home field on the line. And then obviously in the playoff loss, he did not throw the ball particularly well. I mean, and it kind of ruins the fact that he had a career year and he was able to cash in. And it's understandable because ultimately, what are we going to do? We're going to look at the last time we saw you out on the field. And the last time we saw him out on the field, he might have thrown for 245, but he also led them to 9 points against the Rams. So he did not play well in that playoff loss. I mean, that game, it was not competitive, right? I mean, he just looked out of sync. He had a bad pick. He got sacked, 9 times? So I'm not going to pound on my guy slinging Sammy. But they also won 14 games. So now you're expecting this kid come in, and that's a lot of pressure on him, knowing that they went from 14 with a certain quarterback, and now you're coming off an injury, and you really haven't taken any regular season snaps. You're technically still a rookie, even though it'll be a second season. To me, that's pressure on him, but that's also more pressure on the head coach.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if they can live up to last year's hype. And I think it may be a situation where they caught lightning in a bottle. They are getting their left tackle back. They did have some defections in terms of free agency and some changes. But he will have Justin Jefferson there. And that offensive line's got to play better because, as we were talking about, in that playoff loss to the Rams, Darnold was just running for his life, and then that caused him to turn the football over. So McCarthy, this is really his rookie season. So he's going to see if he's able to get out there. Obviously, O'Connell's very high on him, the coach there. He has that playbook that he's worked with extensively. So it's going to be an interesting team to see there. That division is going to be fun, though, Q, because you had 3 teams make the playoffs last year, and the Bears, they're looking to make a jump with Caleb Williams.
Yeah. I guess, everyone's kind of throwing cold water on the Sanders hype train because ultimately the notion is, yeah, he looks good 7-on-7s against guys that, let's be honest, are going to be working in, maybe grocery stores and gas stations. No disrespect to guys or people that do that, but point is they're not going to be around. So right now the kid looks good. I don't know, man. I'm so torn with this because in one breath, in a kind of a twisted way, I want to see this kid play. And it's not to say I told you so. I just want to see the kid play. I want to see him get a fair shake. But there's another part of me that knows, I don't know how he would overcome or react to adversity. And if he struggles or he has picks or he's benched or he takes sacks or, the game's too fast for him, then all of a sudden you flame out and you become a bust. Now, people have told me you can't be a bust when you're drafted in the 3rd or 4th or 5th round. In this case, you can, because the hype train a couple months ago was he was going to be the top quarterback selected. He was going to be top 5. He's going to be 1 or 2 guys to go. So in that regard, yes. But I just think I feel as though the kid, the only way he wins is if he starts and he wins. Other than that, every Monday, everyone's going to be talking about what he did or didn't do.
Well,
right?
He's Deion's son, that put the bullseye on his back a long time ago, Q, and he's going to have to go out there and play well. And everybody was talking about him coming out of the draft. Nobody was really talking about Cam Ward. Everybody talking about Shedeur Sanders and why he dropped and et cetera. He's a 5th-round draft pick, but I think it is set up for him to kind of come in there and have some success. We know Kenny Pickett's not going to be the answer there. Dylan Gabriel, who was inexplicably taken ahead of Shedeur Sanders in 3rd round. He's more of a career backup type, in my opinion. Now we'll see what Joe Flacco has left as a 40-year-old quarterback. But Shedeur's going to get his chances. But that roster, it's just there's not a lot of playmakers on it. He has Judy and a few other pieces there on offense, but just not a lot of playmakers.
Yeah, and I think to Jovan's point, I appreciate him tuning in and commenting. Saw him fight through adversity and playing behind a poor line in college. He can do it. He's got the skills and demeanor to do it. We're talking college. We know how the NFL game is so sped up. I feel unless this kid lights the world on fire, then everyone's going to look at him and say he doesn't live up to the hype. And this is one time where I'm not going to say defending the pick or the move or the player. But as I said, there's a part of me that wants to see to come out, the kid ball. But you look at that depth chart right now. I mean, Joe Flacco is Joe Flacco. He's old. Deshaun Watson is done. Kenny Pickett is so bad. And then you got the kid Gabriel. Like, you're drafting Sanders, but you already drafted Gabriel. I mean, come September, who's the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns? Week 1.
Yeah, I believe it's probably going to be Shedeur Sanders. He's going to get his chance.
Coming on, my goodness.
I do. As you said, the rest of these guys, I hate to say, a bunch of bums, okay? And Q, let's face it, though.
Yeah.
He may not want to start. This is a 3-win team. And you talk about Seifert on the hot seat, Andrew Barry, the general manager, on the hot seat. And this is a tough division. So he may take his lumps behind him. That offensive line's a little banged up. They've had some guys leave, and it's just not the same group. So he may not want to start. But as you said, a lot of times when these young guys start, you wonder, okay, are they going to start seeing coast? Is it a career killer? If they get too beat up, that resiliency he is going to have to display because, let's face it, his dad's not setting the table this time. He's in a new city, and all expectations are on him.
Lloyd firing off. I mean, that's a strong. I haven't heard you have that. That is a strong take in June. That's a cute take. That's just a braggadocious, just balls of stone type of take in June. Vince wants to know, who you have as an early divisional winner in the NFC East, repeat Eagles or surprise Cowboys, or maybe next step Commanders. Oh, the Cowboys are going to stink.
Yeah, I've been back and forth in this one. As we were talking about earlier, no one's repeated since 03, 04 Eagles. But the Eagles just were so strong last season in terms of the team that they built. And they have so
Yeah.
many young players coming back. Yes, they had a lot of defections, Milton Williams and Sweat and some other pieces. But I'd have to say right now, they should be the leader in the clubhouse in terms of winning that division. Obviously, you got to watch for the Commanders. Jaden Daniels is just electric. Bringing Laramie Tunsil over to fix that offensive line. Deebo Samuel coming over as well. So they're adding some pieces. I think the Eagles will squeak it out, but Washington may be breathing down their necks. And as you were saying, Dallas, they got a lot to clean up there. And it's not going to change until Jerry Jones gives up that general manager hat.
Well, we both know. I mean, you hate to say it like this, but unless he passes, he's not giving it up, right? I mean, that's not what, you mentioned the Commanders. McLaren, Scary Terry is pretty frustrated right now, right? With that, well, I should say the lack of a deal getting done long term. Can we see a scenario where the Commanders just say, hey, we're not going to lock you in and we're going to trade you?
I believe they're just going to wait them out. And we know in the NFL, once you miss training camp days, the fines can be up to $80,000 per day. And all that missed money, we just saw it with Le'Veon Bell all those years ago where he decided to sit out and then he was just never the same.
Which ruined his career, by the way.
Yeah, and the NFL teams have a hammer. So Adam Peters, the general manager there, Dan Quinn, the head coach, they'll probably say, all right, Terry, you're talking tough, but let's see in training camp how you feel.
When you look at McLaren and you look at his numbers, his age, so he's due 19 or 20 million this upcoming season. Is he now again, different, salary cap gurus and different sites, they crunch numbers and say, hey, here's the valuation. This is what we believe the player is worth. So cap gurus, there's a couple interesting sites that they believe he's a signing away, the ink being dry on a monster deal. And again, I'm throwing this at you. This is not me. 32 million a deal, 32 million a year, 3 years, $100 million with 60 guaranteed. That's what they believe it'll take for him to be happy.
Thank you. I just don't see that happening.
That's a monster
in
contract.
the NFL, you can find receivers, and to me, he's a one, but he's not a top tier number one receiver. And that's a lot of money to pay him, and a lot. Sometimes his stats in the past, not particularly last season, but he compiled his stats in games and possessions that really didn't matter sometimes, like those big fantasy football numbers at the end of games and where they got out of hand. Now, obviously, Jaden Daniels is coming there and they've kind of rapport going. But, Deebo Samuel coming in a mix, the ball's going to have to be spread around. And that's
Do you think that'll take away from his production?
The number, he won't be the go-to guy. They're going to probably spread the football around, probably try to run it. Some more with Eckler and the other backs coming in there, and he may be unhappy. And when you start talking about contracts, et cetera, in the NFL, teams hold the hammer. The owners do. The players do not have much leverage, and eventually he's probably going to have to report and then go from there. But Jaden Daniels is clearly the star of this offense, and McLaurin wants to say, "Hey, don't forget about me."
So let me give you a couple wide receivers. You tell me if they're better than Scary Terry. Jamar Chase.
Oh, Jamar Chase is better.
I got to throw it down.
Head and shoulders.
Allow me to do what I do. Justin Jefferson.
Another case of Justin Jefferson. He's a dynamic playmaker. Definitely, I'd take him over McLaurin.
Brian Thomas Jr.
Well, that's a good one. Another LSU receiver, but he's younger, but he played very well as a rookie for Jacksonville, and I'd say his upside is more higher than McLaurin at this point in their careers.
Drake London, Mike Evans.
I put him. I put McLaurin ahead of Drake London. He is a little too inconsistent. He has some drops and some injuries to pass. So I'd say McLaurin's a little above him. And what was the other one?
Mike Evans.
Mike Evans is just so consistent but at his age, you got to say, okay, maybe McLaurin, they're about even, I'd say. But Mike Evans definitely gets in the end zone, and he always gets his 1,000 yards, and he's always pretty healthy as compared to McLaurin. Always seems to have nagging injuries.
Two more: T. Higgins and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Oh, Amon-Ra St. Brown, definitely he's ahead of Terry McLaurin at this point. He's a guy that's
okay. So,
and then T. Higgins, he's the number 2 on his team.
Yeah,
I put them right in the same neighborhood. And T. Higgins got franchised. He's trying to fight for his money as well.
So thank you for the exercise that I just gave you. Reason I gave you those wide receivers, they all had over 10 or more touchdown receptions, aside from London, who I actually am a fan of, but they all hit those numbers and that criteria. Evans had 13. Chase had 17. When you go down the list, stat-wise, Terry is right around 15. So again, it leads into the contract and the monies. Now, again, if you don't give him a long-term deal, see Debo's injury prone. That's a problem. And how are you going to use him? You're going to, you have him in the slot, maybe have him on 3rd and short as a back. You're going to put him in the slot. You're going to have him try to go over the top, flank him out wide. Daniels is going to distribute the ball. We know that. But I think, to your point, you can win with good wide receivers. You don't always have to have great wide receivers. Look, the Eagles ran the legs of Saquon last year, but they have a great offensive line. They have great wide receivers, tight end. Okay, fine. It worked. But even if Brown and Smith didn't put up monster numbers, 2,000 yards, it was the legs of Saquon. That was pretty much, they decided we're going to run the football. I think Washington's, I think they can run it a little bit, but I think they're going to let Daniel sling it a little more. I believe there's going to be enough balls to go around. And I think if a deal gets done, this kid's going to have a monster season. I don't think it behooves him to sit out. But I just was curious to get your rankings, if you will, on those guys. Here we go. Lloyd, stand 10 toes down for my boy legendary LFG. Shador will win the job. They give him a fair shot. Flacco got benched for a guy who got benched last year, and Pickett is get Rios a backup.
Well, when you look at the pecking order there's just not a lot there. They have a lot of quarterbacks in the room, if you want to include Deshaun Watson, but all of them have question marks. And I just think, okay, Shador has the highest upside compared to all of them there. Obviously, Joe Flacco, better resume, but at 40-some years old, what's he have left?
What did you make of Saquon going on Chris Long's pod? Much to do about nothing, talking about, retirement. He might be a cat that just decides, I'm just not going to play anymore. I mean, I know people get so bent out of shape and, up in arms and they panic. Running back position, this. The life expectancy of a running back 15, 20 years ago was 3 to 5 years. Now if you play 6, 7, 8 years, that's a pretty damn good career. If you play a decade, that's really good. He's entering his 8th season. He just rushed for over 2,000 yards. He had a record-breaking franchise record season with the Philadelphia Eagles, got a ring on Madden, All-World, All-Pro, Pro Bowl, arguably the best running back in the game right now, could have been the MVP. So what's left, right? Now it's all about the legacy. Because if you look at some of the years that he was hurt, he would have been on a pace. I mean, if I'm being fair, and I am there is this perception that I'm not a Saquon fan. I love Saquon Barkley. I was just not going to pay him. And I'm okay with what the Giants did. And he came back and he stuck it to the Giants and the rest of the NFL. But if you take away so many years he got injured, and let's just say he averaged 1,200 yards for those 3 seasons. He had 534 yards. That's what? We'll call it 6, 12, another 2,400 yards. He's on the cusp of 10,000 yards. On the cusp of 10,000 if he doesn't get hurt. If he plays 2 to 3 more years and averages 1,300 yards and gets to 3,900, 4,000 yards, and then you add the 7,200, if he goes over 10,000 for his career, including the Super Bowl, including the 2,000-yard season, do we look at Saquon and say he's a Hall of Fame running back?
10,000 is not the standard. It
It's
used to
not.
be.
I know it's not like
And the thing
500
is,
home runs was in baseball. I know.
his
I know.
yeah, his resume would be very impressive. He gets over 10,000 yards, and then you add in some of the receiving aspect, and then the 2,000-yard season, and winning the Super Bowl. It was just a magical season for him. And yes, I would say if he gets that 10,000, has about 2 to 3 more great years, he is going to get into the Hall of Fame because running backs, as you're saying, don't last as long, and the numbers are not as high as they used to be. So they're considering a lot of other things when they're putting these guys in. But all-time great, and everybody's looking at what Patrick Willis did, with the Niners, where he had about 7 great seasons, and he said, "I'm retiring at a young age. I want to still be healthy." And some of these players are thinking that way now.
But aren't those positions, though, it's subjective because the linebacker position, you can be a compiler. Like London Fletcher, I'm sorry, I don't think of those guys as Hall of Fame players. They had great careers, but if I get 1,000 tackles in my career, that automatically sticks me in the Hall of Fame. Pro Bowl to me, I think it's an over. All pro is where you're at. I think it's apples and oranges. I know you're, again, the comparative, but Saquon, people forget his rookie season. He was a running back that not only rushed for over 1,000 yards. Go look what he did with the Giants. I think he had close to 800 yards receiving. He had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. He had 2,200 last year. He's at 9,594. Now, here's the question. When Saquon ran and carried the ball 295 times with the Giants in 2022, and he had over 1,300 yards, he got hurt the next year and missed a couple games. The production dropped, but he still carried it 247. He carried the football 345 times. And I guess the concern would be the drop off. And Madman's Johnny on the spot here. When you start to look at these running backs, and I'll give you the perfect example. And typically when you have 2,000-yard seasons, you're going to carry the ball a boatload. Are you not?
Yeah, and when you're getting over 400 touches in a season, it's a recipe for disaster. You look at Christian McCaffrey. Look what happened last year after he had that great season before. Last year he had all those nagging injuries. The Achilles was sore all season. Never was able to get back in the groove. Todd Gurley, look at him. He was a guy that was
Were you
out.
saying touches or carries? Not to interrupt.
Well, carries are most important too, but then you factor in, okay, he's catching the ball as well, getting hit that point too. So 400 carries is a ton. And you talk about the backs that have gotten 2K, and they never.
Chris Johnson comes to mind.
Yeah, CJ 2K. He was never really the same guy after that. I talked about Todd Gurley, who was real. He approached 2,000. He didn't get it, but he was just banged up after he got that big contract. It's just a position that just requires so much, and guys just as they approach that age 30 just are not the same, and it's tough to pay them for past performance as a running back.
So Larry Johnson,
yeah,
not my Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson had 416 carries in 2006. He ran for close to 1,700 yards. How many yards do you think he had the next season?
He got it. He was very banged up. I would say, 600.
559. So there's Larry Johnson. Let me go to, because it's a great conversation. It really is when you talk about the running back position. Jamal Anderson. He got hurt like the very next year, I think opening day.
Right.
Didn't he tear up his ACL or knee?
Carried the Falcons Super Bowl, and I think he tore his knee.
All right. He had 410 yards, 1998, played 2 games the next year. So the man's on to something here. He's mad, but he's on to something. James Wilder. How about that name? James Wilder. Back in the day, Cincinnati, right?
James Wilder was
Tampa, pardon me. He might be the outlier, Lloyd. He had 407 touches for 1,500 yards. The next year, he played 16 games, 365 carries, 1,300 yards. And then I think we have one more back. Dickerson never carried the ball.
Well, Dickerson carried it a ton in setting the all-time record.
Was it over 400?
I'm not sure if it was over 400, but another guy, he had some good longevity, but at the end of his career with the Rams, he fought over his contract, and then he goes to Atlanta, he goes to the Raiders, and he just
There
was
you
never
go. You're right.
guys.
No, you're right. You're right. Not to interrupt. You're right. 86, 404 carries, 1,800 yards, but 87 was the strike. So he had 263 yards for, wow. In 12 games, he started 10 and he still had 1,288 yards. Jeez.
Yeah, and it was a different NFL Q where they were
I
handing
know.
the ball off and the lines, and now teams are building around a quarterback and the receivers, and that's what was so magical about Saquon running
Yeah.
the football again. But it's the Eagles really be smart to kind of back off the number of his touches, give some other guys like Will Shipley, and they brought in AJ Dillon to give him some carries to help Saquon so he's not as beat up.
Those types of years, right? They're so hard to duplicate. They really are. And then the last one, and a couple guys on X and Facebook are messaging me, Eddie George, which I totally forgot about. So let me pull up Eddie George real quick before I let you get out of here.
The 99 season, they made the Super Bowl, and he carried the team.
So 403 carries, 1,500 yards. Was he the MVP that year? Or was it Marshall Faulk?
I think Falk may have been,
right.
And then you had Steve McNair running the ball as well. But both McNair and Eddie George both got beat up a lot, and as they approached 30, they just were not the same guys. Eddie George he gets over 10,000, and it was with the Dallas Cowboys.
That's true.
His season over.
The next year, so he was Associated Press AP Player of the Year, but MVP AP went to Marshall Faulk that year. So he had 403 carries. The next year, he had 315, and he didn't even rush for 1,000 yards, but he played in 16 games. So you guys are on to something, right? I mean, that leads me to believe, first of all, like it's trending where he's not going to have those touches. That's a generational type of season, right? That's a generational type of season. And you're right. When you kind of peel back the curtain and you take a step back, a couple more years, he might decide that's it. The body can only take, there's so much wear and tear going on here.
Correct. And you just got to take it year by year now. And the good thing for Saquon, much like Emmitt Smith, he has one of the best offensive lines around. He's got good guys up front that are kind of open holes, and he's not going to have contact to kind of down the field. But you don't want to have your running back have that many touches because, look at Terrell Davis. He carried the Broncos to those championships, and then he gets hurt, and then he was just never the same. So
I still don't look at him as a Hall of Fame running back. I'm sorry. And I argue with people about this. I know you and I have gone back and forth, and, the counters, look what he did, in that window, those 2-3 seasons, and then look what he was able to do in the playoffs. But I mean, his last 3 years in the NFL, he played not 17 games. Right. 17 games. He had 4 full seasons, 1,100, 15, 1,700, 2,000. Now we're going to include the playoffs, and that you have to open up that conversation for a lot of people. Like, I don't know. I mean, do you look at TD as a Hall of Famer? I mean, he's in.
He's in, and the guys from the Pro Football Writers Association, they have a 44-man panel, and this is what they argue about, the resumes, and I always say a guy has to be great for 10 years. You know what I mean? Be an all-decade type player and to win it, and then obviously championships factor as well. So I'd say
you look at the playoffs too? Do you look at the whole body of work?
You got to. And it's tough with Terrell Davis because that injury just killed his career. And then you look at the number of yards. If you just look at straight stats, no, he's not a Hall of Famer. But people are always going to point to him carrying those Super Bowl teams.
So I'm on a text thread with my buddies, and they text some good NFL stuff. And one of them texts a screenshot of, like, I don't know who came up with it, but it was the all-time, wide receiver combo duo. And obviously they had Moss and Carter right there. But the 4 guys, the 2 duos that were off the list? And I'm like, did a young guy come up with this? But take a wild guess. The 2 duos that were off the list.
I know. I'll go. I think the Marx Brothers for the Miami Dolphins should have been on that list. And then the one I pointed to right away, I'm like, the Steelers, John Stallworth and Lynn Swan. They're two Hall of Famers. I know the numbers aren't there because it's a different time where Bradshaw's throwing 20 times or less a game, but they were just dominant and they're Hall of Famers.
I don't know how. I feel as though, you get these young guys that are covering the NFL, or they're coming up with these blogs and these debates and all this kind of stuff, right? But yes, Duper and Clayton were just, they were on another level. I mean, they were that good. They basically, they instilled fear in secondaries, right? Because if one of them was going to beat you over the top, then the other one, or if you're trying to shut down one from beating you over the top, the other one's going to turn around and get you on the slant or over the top. I mean, you had one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history in Marino, who burst on the scene as a rookie. They go to the Super Bowl. They get waxed by the 49ers 38-16. But then you got these two guys that are just utterly ridiculous. I mean, their first three seasons with the Dolphins, they went 38-10, and they made 2 AFC title games. It was just to put them off to not have them they played 10 years together. How long did Moss and Carter play together?
Not that long. And then they also had Jake Reed there as well. So
Don't remind me. To this day, his foot was still out of bounds in that
Robert Smith. My son is on my show a lot. He's 20 years old, and I have these same conversations. I tell him, I said, I watched those old games, and I know how good those guys were, because nowadays, they're throwing a ball, at every short yardage situation.
Of course, and they break them.
100 catches is not what it used to be nowadays, and they're playing 18-game schedule. And you got to remember that season in '84 for the Dolphins. That was the first time anybody threw for over 5,000 yards. Marino,
that's right,
was on point, and those guys were getting the ball down the field. Nat Moore as well. You cannot forget about that group. Unfortunately, Clayton and Duper got hurt, and they didn't make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, they were on that. Because, by the way, Jake Reed, like I said, you go back, you watch that Giant Minnesota wild card game, he was out of bounds. Giants, Minnesota goes for an onside kick in the pouring rain of the Meadowlands back in the day, and Chris Cab Calloway couldn't retrieve it. I pulled it up. 48 games Carter and Moss played together. 48. And then you mentioned Stallworth and Swan. Well, you know where they made their money? In the playoffs. They were as clutch as they can be in those AFC championships. The game-breaking plays in the Super Bowl against Dallas twice, and then in the Rams late. These lists, man, I don't know who the hell's coming up. These young guys have absolutely no appreciation for the history of the NFL. None.
They don't. And my son always says, they were playing against a bunch of plumbers. You know what I mean? They disrespect the guy. I'm like, you don't know how good these guys were back in the day. I mean, it's incredible.
Listen, that's why those guys are deservingly so in the Hall of Fame, and they should be. So, all right, we got to start wrapping up. I always appreciate you, my friend. I'm glad we got you back in the saddle. You and your son and you and your guest are on Mondays now, 8:00, right?
Yes, on SR 1029.
102.109. All right. Well, our good friend, the incredible shrinking Hermano, Angel Martinez. All right, brother. We will do it again next week. Your insight is awesome. Can't wait to really start to get in some NFL. We can talk NFL all day, but always appreciate you jumping on board for a couple moments.
All right, brother. Talk to you later.
All right, you got it. Quick time out. We'll wrap things up. All right, a couple of minutes before we get out of here, let me give you the Qfecta from our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off your first purchase, BYP20. Excellent stuff from Lloyd Vance. I cannot wait to get him on more than once during the week as we dive into some football. All right, not good last night for yours truly with the NHL. 2-1, or 1-2, pardon me. We'll go with NBA and some baseball. I do like OKC laying 9.5 tonight. The Rangers over the Rays at plus 125. Cubs over the Nats minus 150 on the money line. We've been a little better with baseball. And again, we'll try to do the pick of the litter here with the NBA. Did really bad with the Eastern Conference Finals. A lot better with the Western Conference Finals, as you guys pointed out. Maybe I was doing my picks with the heart, not the head. Quickly, A's all over the Twins, 14-3. O's trying to squeak out another win over the Mariners in the ninth, 4-3. The Mets leading the Dodgers. Mets are about to take 3 or 4 from the NL West leading Dodgers. And what the hell did the Phillies do today? The Phillies got absolutely toasted. Here's the mush. I said, Luzardo, where's Jovan? I said, take a flyer on Luzardo for NL Cy Young, and he got absolutely rocked again today. Back-to-back starts when this guy has pitched like Nuke Lelouch. He's looked horrible. Oh, my God. 2 1/3. 2 1/3, Jovan, and he gives up 8 runs, all earned, 9 hits, struck out 2. Lasted just 61 pitches, 2 1/3. What was I thinking? I said, take a flyer on him at plus 1,800 NL Cy Young. And since I've said that, he is wet the bed, so to speak. So tomorrow on a What the Frig version of Middays with Q, we'll recap game 1 of the NBA Finals. We'll preview game 2. Stanley Cup Finals resumes tomorrow. That was a good game last night. If you enjoyed it, if you didn't see it, you missed out on a really nice overtime win by the Edmonton Oilers, 4-3. And again, that is a finals rematch. We'll dive into a little more baseball, the Trout situation. I want to talk to Steve Garner. Costco's hopefully going to join us tomorrow. We'll talk a little college basketball and college football with him, get his thoughts on Belichick and UNC because the June 1st date has surpassed. We might even punch up our good friend Angel Martinez, and we'll see if he's driving around doing yeoman-like in God's work if he can spare a couple minutes on a Friday. Excellent job as always from you guys with the comments, the engagement. You guys are fantastic how you always keep it locked in for 2 hours. You can catch me in the morning with the Tri-X 57 Sports Flash. Just don't forget to check out their Facebook page, like, comment, and subscribe. Also comment to my YouTube channel, and you can always follow me. It's very easy to do. Really easy to do on all social media accounts at Rich Q on Q, on X and IG, and also on TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. But excellent stuff from Jonathan Marshall on the NBA. Gave you some really great insight on the Knicks, Thibodeau, and his thoughts on the NBA Finals, how he sees it playing out. We both like OKC. I'm going to say 6 games. It begins tonight. And then, of course, our NFL Insider, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us for a very good extended segment and some really good thoughts. So we'll break those segments down. We'll put them on the YouTube channel as well and social media. All right, as we wrap it up, everyone have a good sports Thursday. Enjoy the NBA Finals. You got a little late baseball, a lot of day baseball today, but as always, we'll be back in the saddle tomorrow live from 4 to 6. Thank you guys for commenting on Facebook, on X, on the YouTube channel. You guys have been fantastic. Have a good sports Thursday. Be safe, be sound. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a What the Frig Friday edition of Middays with Q. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Hasta luego, mi dia.